Okay, let's get started. Welcome to today's presentation, Trendy Colors in PCR. My name is Jessica Knoch and I'm the head of marketing at Lifocolor. Before we get started with the topic of today's presentation, I would like to explain to you why we're here giving this presentation in the first place, and then I will hand the floor to my colleague Andrea Hanke. Lifocolor Colors. We're a master batch producer. As you can see over here, the colorful palettes. We do colors and plastic materials, and we have been doing so in more than 30 years now. So we create color in plastic materials. We support the plastic processing industry, and we add functionality and stability to plastic materials. So our little granules have a lot of functionality and features to offer. We're also experts in the cosmetics industry, so we work with a lot of branded manufacturers, suppliers, etc. We have a total of approximately 200 employees at 5 locations across 4 countries in Europe. Our production capacity amounts to approximately 10,000 tons. I'm also part of our trend service team at Lifocolor Colors. So we work together with a color road team. It's a Renolite team. So we actually create trend color series every year. So we work with trend experts, trend institutes, and today we'd like to introduce you to 12 shades of color. But our actual topic for today is how do color and circularity come together? What are the challenges and what are the opportunities? And I would now like to hand the floor to my colleague Andrea Hanke, who will tell you a little more about our starting base. Thank you very much, Jessica, for your introduction. Again, I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Andrea Hanke. I'm the head of the technical department at our Straufhain plant. Today's presentation will be about how PCR materials can be colored. PCR materials do not necessarily need to be gray and totally invisible. They can be trendy and colorful. We at Lifocolor have been presented with the task, or the challenge I could say, to color PCR materials in a way so as that you can't even tell the difference of virgin materials and PCR materials. However, when we're talking about coloring recyclates, we have to say that there are significant barriers that need to be overcome, and we can't achieve everything we would like to unless it's possible, like with virgin materials. And I'm going to explain you more about that later during the presentation. When it comes to PCR materials, we have a color in the material as such, and we have a target color that we would like to achieve. But if I start with a recyclant, I would like to tell you more about what we can achieve, what is possible. I would also like to talk about dosing and opacity. Do I want translucence, transparency? Is that even possible with PCRs? Up here on the slide, what you can see is different grades of recyclates. So that's what you get, that's the result of a sorting machine. So have some whitish, beige, grayish. We also have colored recyclates, that's possible, because the sorting machines nowadays do not only sort by materials, but also sort by colors, if required. So every color has a certain wavelength, and that's what sorting machines use in order to sort by color. So when it comes to recycling methods, we would always differentiate between mechanical and chemical processes. When we're talking about mechanical processes, the substance inside the recyclate, which is basically filled with color, which cannot be sorted out, sifted, unless with chemical procedures where you break up the bonds. And in chemical recycling procedures, you actually end up with the original raw material, just very roughly speaking, actually not, but as you can see here, these materials were sorted by mechanical recycling procedures, and we want to color all these different types of recyclates. So we have to put color on top. So we add color to a material, a plastic material that already has substances, has colors in them. So we have some half spheres here. So you have a bright gray and a dark gray on the other side. So these are the main streams of PCRs that we see in everyday business. So these will be the kind of shades that we would color in everyday business when coloring plastic materials. I would like to demonstrate something. So this is recyclate. This is a brighter type. And unlike with some lacquering or a multi-stage process, we actually dyed entirely the full mass. When you lacquer it, you would just put varnish on top. You just coat the top. Gray turns into yellow, but that doesn't work on a larger scale. You can't dye it through. So I would like to show you something. I actually brought some modeling clay for you, which is to mimic our recyclate, like the base material that we receive from the extruder. But the modeling clay is very tough. I can't knead it. I thought it would be softer, but still. So our plastic material, our recyclate, and that's our target color, yellow. So let me try. I don't want to talk about dispersion problems here, but I want to show you how you can actually bring the color yellow into this recyclate. And as you can see, no matter how much yellow I actually put into my modeling clay, it doesn't really turn yellow. But I don't want to stand here today telling you what we cannot do. Actually, what I want to do is it's possible to color recyclates. There are some barriers, there are some things we cannot do. That's definitely, I have to be very clear about when we talk about coloring recyclates. But together with our cooperation partner, the Crumbs company, we developed a new trend color series for 2023. So we would both like to host this part of the presentation, and while Mrs. Knoch will introduce you to the new trend colors, I will tell you more about how we can color those materials, what's technically feasible, what opportunities they are. And I think we brought you great colors that we came up with in our cooperation with the Crumbs company. So Jessica, you have the floor. Take us on a color journey, and I will give you some additional information about what's technically feasible. So what you can see here, we have 5 shades of color that we brought for you today. The base of this cooperation project was a very dark PCR-based material, which we colored. So let's see what to expect. What kind of trend colors are we going to see during the next couple of months in 2023? What are our colors for cosmetics? Now that we've left like the pandemic behind, because we spent like almost 2 years in the pandemic, lots of lockdowns, restrictions we had to put up with, makeup and colors in the cosmetics industry now see a huge revival in fashion too. So this is actually a path-breaking industry which has a strong influence, and we are seeing a new dynamic, like a field of tension. We have some essentials, some naturalness, and pure creativity and innovation. What you can see here, just at a glance, these are our 12 trend colors that you will see at the POS during the next time. So we tried to split them up into 3 different levels in order to represent different types of consumers and to better illustrate our world of colors. Let's start with the first level, which we called deep level. So this is a color world that's pretty pop art style, that's pretty, brings us back to the emotions and all the actions that got suppressed during the pandemic, we experience new opportunities. We have a new spirit of freedom, joy, happiness, celebrating arts, music, makeup. So we want to break with conventions. So the first very strong color termed vibe, which is very artsy, extravagant, strong, self-confident, powerful people, which is decoration for some powerful people. This turquoise is like a real bravery, ingenuity, open, communicative, and clear thinking. Andrea Hanke, what about coloring those? Well, it's not that bad, what you can see up here on the slide. And you can see the different grades, the different qualities here. So these are the different PCR types. For brighter streams of material, we don't have problem to create a color like this. So thinking of this very dark gray, it gets a little more difficult because the brighter my recyclate, the easier it is to color it. So the second shade in our range of trend colors is our hot pink. You can see that in the fashion industry. You can see other inspirations, which is provocative, but at the same time gleeful, rock star, punk rock look. And this is a shade of color that represents pure excitement, passion, energy, and power. And we also did a great job of recreating that during our cooperation. Hot pink works. I can just tell that with the Cramps company, our cooperation partner, we managed to dye a very dark recyclate and beautifully represent this color, so this is definitely technically feasible. The dosage would be at 8%, slightly higher compared to working with a virgin material, but still economically feasible. The next shade is yellow, joy, which represents fascination, joy of living. It's a great, optimistic shade of gray, which actually attracts attention, makes us alert, and actually represents new path, invites us to embark on a new journey. So what about yellow? You talked about that already. Well, there are definitely limits to coloring yellow. That doesn't work. Not from a shade of gray. Even with the brighter prototypes, I need to admit, if I want some sunny, radiant yellow, it doesn't work, even not when working with some brighter streams of PCR, because they have fillers, titanium dioxide, etc. So we really have to think carefully about what you want to achieve. Will I accept that is no longer as radiant, or will I just say, okay, I want some radiant sunny yellow, so the only thing I can do is use virgin material for that. So we worked with that from virgin material. We have to be honest about that. We need to be honest. There need to be some trade-offs. It doesn't help. So let me give you a couple of examples. So this was recreated from virgin material, because we wanted to keep that color, but we actually have to do it in virgin material because we're very limited when it comes to recyclates. So this is a very spiritual shade. That's why we called it spirit, which is our artistic heritage, very creative, full of energy, power of life, which really motivates us. It's ingenuity, sometimes some exuberance, extravagance. And the metallic shades in the fashion industry also convey some luxury, working with those metal elements. Andrea, what about coloring that material? I'm not really worried about coloring recyclates that shade. Sure, the very dark gray, that's a little difficult, then it will be a little toned down. Glossy is probably not that easy with recyclates too, but we can definitely recreate this shade of color. So again, we have the pop style range of colors, which is to address younger consumers and which plays with the elements of turquoise, lilac, like the 1980s, 1990s, reminiscent of that period. The next level I would like to explain to you is our essential level, because there are certain tendencies that you're all familiar with from branded manufacturers, everyone who's in marketing. There is a trend towards more sustainability, more naturalness, and this is a big topic obviously here. And that was also fostered by the pandemic because consumers tried to look inwards, learned some new modesty, and are now more mindful of our environment, the world we live in, and are more determined to go through with that. And in order to address those kinds of people and develop products for that target group, in order to address them, we developed several trend colors for that group. One is a strongly reddish, oscillating, coppery chestnut color shade called Vigor, which actually conveys passion, but at the same time warmth, pure beauty, and this natural earthen brown also conveys stability and structure protection. So how about realizing it with PCRs? This shade of color is fairly easy to realize. I'm not worried about doing that with PCRs. The question is, do I want some bronze or some copper, some effects in that regard? We have to be a little more careful about that, because depending on what kind of effects I would like to see, it can be that the recycler basically really swallows up those effects. So we cannot achieve all kinds of effects. For example, if I want some mother of pearl effect, that won't be possible, but the shade as such is not a problem. So this is a fairly bright color, pure. Nude look is still absolutely trendy. It's a must-have. You definitely need to have it in your range of colors. So this is a color that those who are a little more looking for something convenient, some timeless, something more authentic. So the soft, subtle shade in our range of trend colors, which again focuses on modesty, reluctance. In fashion, we see the same with the safari looks. And in the cosmetics industry, this is definitely a must-have in every range of colors. So what about these brighter shades? Brighter shades are difficult to realize. It definitely shows us what the limits are. The brighter types, yes, but the darker streams, no, it's not possible to achieve that shade from a recyclate. So it definitely depends on the starting material, definitely. So this is a fairly dark shade, so I'm really excited to learn what you're going to tell us about coloring it. Eternal oscillates between dark gray and brown. This is very reliable, a very down-to-earth shade. You have this earthen tone to it, a large percentage of brown. But this brown gray also has a strong sensual component. It fills us with calmness, comfort, and protection. So it's a perfect part of our essential level. So what about coloring? Well, some of you will probably be surprised because the darkest shades are not easy to do from a recyclate. So with the brighter streams, we have fillers that will come through again and again. So you have some brighter components in the material. And dark, like you probably know it from dyeing your hair, if you have dark hair and want a different shade of dark, that's difficult. And the same is actually true for coloring dark recyclates. You might think, okay, we want some dark brown, that should be easy, right? But honestly, these kinds of shades are very, very challenging to do.
Ja, der letzte Ton nochmal in unserer neutraleren oder sag ich mal auch
So
ja,
the last
erdenderen,
shade we have in
naturverbundenen
our
Palette ist
more
unser Leaf
natural
Green. Ja,
earthen
fast schon ein
range of colors is
Chlorophyllgrün,
leaf
wie man sagen
green,
muss.
almost like
Wirklich
chlorophyll
sehr
actually,
nah an der pflanzlichen
which is very close
Grünwelt,
to
sag ich mal.
the green
Und
we
steht
find
deswegen auch
out in the
für
outside world in
Ausgewogenheit,
plants.
Harmonie,
So it represents
Erneuerung,
harmony,
Wachstum und ein
balance,
Stück weit
renovation,
revitalisierende
growth,
Energie.
and
Natürlich auch sehr zu
revitalization,
empfehlen, wenn man
new
ein Produkt
energy,
auch noch mal einmal mehr
which I
nachhaltig
would strongly
kennzeichnen will. Es
recommend if
ist
you want to do
natürlich
it like
immer
a
grün.
sustainable product,
Man
because
verbindet
green
es
is
einfach
something that
wahnsinnig
people will
stark mit den
automatically
Trends,
associate with
Green Tech,
sustainability.
vegan,
So green tech,
und Co.
vegan, all
Da
these kinds of
passt das natürlich auch
trends are
wahnsinnig gut
great
dazu.
fit for
Und
this
diesen Ton
particular
haben wir
color.
auch in der Kooperation
And we
dabei.
also realized that shade of color in our cooperation. It's very easy to implement. It came out very powerful, very strong. So even from darker recyclates, it's fairly easy to realize. So it's not a problem. As you can see, it works perfectly fine.
Jawohl. Hier noch einmal
Here
diese
again, you
Palette
can
von
see
der
our essential level
Essential Level.
range.
Und jetzt geht es noch einmal
Before we
in
move
ein
on to a
kosmisches
totally
Level, das wir
different
gedanklich
level, a
reisen.
cosmic
Wir
level.
reisen nämlich zu den neuen Sphären der Zukunft.
I would like to invite you to
Diese
travel with me to the
Trendfarbpalette
spheres
steht
of
noch einmal
future.
für den
This
Fortschritt,
trend
die
color
Innovation.
range
Auch das
represents
haben wir in den
progress,
letzten
innovation,
Monaten sehr, sehr stark erlebt.
something that
Unsere
we have
Digitalisierung
experienced
voran,
during the
mehr
last
oder
couple
weniger,
of
zumindest der
months,
Wunsch,
like
war ganz
digitization or a
stark
strong
getrieben. Und
wish
man
to become
erlebt,
more
dass die
digital was
Verbraucherinnen und
omnipresent.
Verbraucher,
And what we
Käuferinnen
experienced
und
was
Käufer
that
nach
consumers
intelligenten Lösungen suchen.
are now
Die
looking
Marken
for
sind
smarter
gefordert, wirklich
solutions.
auf
So
diesen
they're calling
flexiblen
upon
Lebensstil
brands
einzugehen, auf
to
die
respond to their
Flexibilität,
more
die
flexible
sich die
lifestyles, to
Verbraucherinnen
the
und Verbraucher
stronger
wünschen.
flexibility that
Ähm,
consumers
Sie
are now
wissen es
looking
selber,
for in the modern day and
nachfüllbare
age.
Verpackungen, integrative
Refillers, you all
Verpackungen,
know it.
nachhaltige Verpackungen,
Integrated packaging,
On-the-Go-Konzepte,
sustainable
all das
packaging,
sind
on the go
Herausforderungen, wo
concepts. These are
wahnsinnig
all
viel
new
Innovation auch
challenges
in
where
Ihnen
we
als
need a lot of
Kosmetikmarke steckt
innovation
und
and where the
deswegen
cosmetics
eine sehr,
brands
sehr
can offer a lot of
zukunftsgewandte
new innovations.
Farbpalette auch, die das auch ein
So this is
ganzes
a
Stück weit
future-oriented range of
symbolisiert
colors,
und auf
which
den
is supposed to
Punkt bringt,
symbolize that
wie wir
progress.
das alles vereinfachen und diese
So
Innovation
how
nach
can
außen
we
strahlen können. Und da haben wir
simplify that?
dieses
How
ganz
can we
starke
focus
oranges
on that
Firestar
and represent
in der Palette
innovation
mit
to the
drin,
outside
das
world?
die
So
Energie von dem
Firestar
Rot,
is a
dieses
very
ganz starke Rot
strong
und die
red.
Heiterkeit
It
von Gelb in
represents
sich vereint
energy, but also brings in
und
some
absoluten
cheerful
Optimismus
yellow,
ausstrahlt.
which basically
Spontanität,
represents total
Begeisterung, das
optimism,
pure Leben. Für Abenteuer
spontaneity,
steht, auch ein Stück
fascination, pure
Risikobereitschaft
life,
ausstrahlt.
some
Wirklich eine
willingness to
ganz
take
starke Farbe,
risks,
dass die Leute mit
adventurousness, a
Selbstbewusstsein
strong
auftragen
color
können
that will make
und
people
auch ein Stück
self-confident
weit Unabhängigkeit
and
wirklich
will also symbolize
ausstrahlt. Auch
independence.
diesen Farbton haben wir in unserer
We
Kooperation
also
umgesetzt.
recreated this
Andrea,
color in our
sozusagen.
cooperation.
Diese Farbe war
Andrea.
wirklich ein Angstgegner.
Well, I was really worried about that color when our cooperation partner approached us and said they wanted to do that color from a recyclate.
Kurzweilig etwas übel.
So actually, I felt pretty nauseous at first because I really did not know how to do that color from a dark recyclate, but we managed to do it. Honestly, this is 50-50. It's a 50-50 mix. So the plastic material is 50% virgin, 50% recycled. That's possible too, obviously. So what I can do is I can also feed some recyclate in. I don't need to strive for 100% recyclate. So if I really want this particular shade of color, so color is more important than the material I use, I can also vary a little what dosages I want to use. But you need to know that, right? You need to know what you want to do. You need to know what you want to sell, what your advertising claims are going to be. So we used 50-50. That's what we decided on because this perfectly represents this shade of color. We have some great, strong orange. But when it comes to designing your products, you should think about that first. Like, is it fine for me to have a product that has a large percentage of recyclates, for example, 90x%, and the color, you can add some virgin material? You have to think about that. What trade-off are you willing to make between what kind of color you want to have, what kind of material you want to use, and what the end product is supposed to be? And maybe at this point I should mention that all the colors that we developed for the recycled material section, we have high temperature stability, and we actually support our circular economy and the recycling capacities with selected pigments, with high quality colorants, in order to retain high recycled quality so that we don't have any substances migrating out of our materials. I just wanted to point it out that we use high quality colors, but actually if you want, you can approach us so we can explain more to you in a face-to-face conversation, because I think that's too much detail for the presentation as such.
Den Progress-Ton.
Progress.
Ein sehr, sehr starkes
This is a shade that is very strong, great blue, which is actually very complementary with orange. It's a bold combination, but in our cosmic level, everything is possible. So this is a shade of blue that represents some tradition, because blue is a very stable, safety, traditional shade, but this particular blue has a high share of cyan, so it's very vivacious, it's vibrant, representing progress, future dynamic progress. So this means it brings both worlds together while at the same time trying to advance into the future. We try to reproduce that color too. However, this is virgin material. It's feasible to do it from a recycled, but this particular shade is so strong and so has a totally own voice, so to speak. So I personally decided to use virgin material for that, but it's definitely possible to do a representation of this color from a recycled, but it's definitely subdued then.
So, vorletzter Ton. Wir haben noch
So we
der so
have
genannt ist,
straight
weil es
for
wirklich
you.
ein etwas kühlerer Ton ist,
It's a
ein
slightly
etwas
cooler
distanzierterer
shade, a
Ton,
little more distanced.
aber auch sehr
but
freiheitsliebender herkommt, also
It's like
bisschen diese
freedom
Verbindung
loving,
von Luft, Meer,
bridges
Himmel,
the gap,
deswegen auch eine
has
wahnsinnige
associations
Offenheit,
with
auch
the
in sich
air, the
direkt,
sea
auch in eine sehr
breeze,
klare
conveys
Kommunikation
openness,
reingeht. Das liegt
fosters
einfach auch
clear
in dieser
communication.
Türkiswelt,
Because of this
das wir ja auch schon
turquoise
anfangs gesehen haben.
element,
Deswegen
we
da
saw
muss man
that
sich
at the very
einfach,
beginning too.
entscheiden, hat man ein
So
Produkt,
you are
das
the ones
einfach
to
vielleicht
decide
auch
weder
frisch, kühl,
your product
klar,
is supposed to be
pink,
fresh, cool,
daherkommen
clear.
soll, dann ist das auf jeden Fall
If
eine
yes,
gute Wahl.
that's a perfect
Aber
shade for you.
es ist natürlich wieder ein sehr
But
heller Ton, deswegen
it's a very bright shade, so what's the situation like? Difficult. Really, it's difficult. Like the main streams of recyclates we get, hardly possible. Brighter streams, yes, but the main streams of recyclates, there are significant barriers to be able to do that. I can't color that. It's not possible.
Und als letztes in dieser Palette unser
And the
Silver
last
Line.
from our
Ein
range of colors,
Hoffnungsstreif
silver
am
lining,
Horizont,
a true
der für
silver
Klugheit,
lining which
Selbstständigkeit
represents
steht, auch für gewisse
smartness,
Sicherheit und natürlich gerade in diesen
self-reliance,
Silbervariationen,
security, and this,
eigentlich mit
these
Effekten
variants of
wahnsinnig schön
silver
dynamisch
offers
daherkommt,
great
auch
dynamic
absolut für
effects.
Moderne natürlich steht,
So
für
it definitely
etwas
represents
Originelles,
modernity,
Unkonventionelles,
originality,
aber in der
unconventionalness.
Rezyklatwelt nicht so einfach.
But it's not easy from recyclates, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy. So we really have to talk and see what do we want to achieve. Mother of pearl effects, difficult. You can do it in recyclates, but you have to make some significant trade-offs. So we would need to get talking. You need to tell me more about what you'd actually be looking for. In the brighter types, it's feasible. With the darker recyclates, it's difficult. But getting some metallic effect from recyclates, there are significant trade-offs to be made. A metallic effect, that's not going to be possible from recyclates. Not right now. I don't know what the future is going to bring. I think we'll see a lot of progress in that field during the next couple of years because we're called upon to work with recyclates, so it's definitely going to be an integral part of the market. And I've been in this business for so long, and I think we're going to see some significant progress. And I think in a couple of years now, coloring recyclates will definitely be easier than it is now. I'm firmly convinced of that. Okay, at the very end, this is the cosmic level range. As Mrs. Hanke said, this is the status quo. we're telling you about what's possible right now or in the next 2 to 5 years. We, as a supplier, will definitely keep you up to date with all new components in the market, all the new developments in the color world. So this brings us to the end of our highlights, our color highlights. But we would all like to invite you to get some materials, color cards, booklets. Please visit us at our booth. We have a cooperation set, the 5 shades that we did during our cooperation. So these are great inspirations for the colors to come. EO2, Hall 4, we're happy to talk to you. We're happy to answer your questions about individual materials because there are so many different types of plastics materials. So we would be happy to see you all at our booth and talk to you about all your questions that you may have. And thank you so much for your attention today.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you.